Swift.
Over to you, India and South Africa. Give us the top-of-table clash that we are eagerly awaiting at the Eden Gardens. Could this be a dress rehearsal to the final? Could it be a dress rehearsal to the semi-final now? You think India and South Africa will meet at least one more time. So who takes the brownie points away from what is a grandstand blockbuster fixture we build up to on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. It's a very different tournament than when we last met with Aaron Finch on the 14th, I think it was, for India-Pakistan.
Australia were 0-2 then, weren't we?
Yes, Australia were doing nothing, and now Australia look like the team to beat. Finchy, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's been a long tournament, and yet these two teams clearly are the best in that tournament. Anil, exciting game?
Yeah, it is. It's going to be an exciting game. Both of them will remain 1 and 2. It can change a bit. Somebody can go up. South Africa, if they beat India today, could potentially be 1, but they'll remain 1 and 2. So yes, exciting, because both teams have been really consistent throughout the tournament. South Africa had a hiccup, but from there on, I think they've been really, really exciting.
Being 1 and 2 also makes a difference. I don't know if teams have already started thinking, Finchy, whether at this stage, let's finish one, let's avoid Australia in the semi-final. Do you have that sort of thought? Because we as fans tend to think, it's important to finish one. Look at who you get to play then in the semi-final.
I think it's important to avoid India more than anything. So if South Africa win today and India finish second, Australia most likely, you would say at this stage, to finish third. Like that's a huge clash then. So I think the players won't necessarily be looking at it that way, but behind the scenes, I think the management would start to, and Anil will know this more from the coach side of it, but the management will start to think, right, how do we plan to take on India or take on South Africa? And you have to be adaptable, but very different tournament so far.
Let's talk about that question then. How do you take on India? South Africa, the team that seems the strongest outside of India, and how do they challenge India today?
I think still bat first. South Africa should bat first and then get that 300, which they have consistently done whenever they have batted first. Their lowest score has been 311 against Australia in this World Cup. So if they can get to that score, I think it will certainly challenge India. Of course, India has done well chasing targets in this tournament, but 300 plus on any surface with the kind of bowling attack that South Africa have will certainly challenge India.
Realistically, this whole chat of do we back our strengths or do we put the opposition in a position of discomfort, it can be had today, given there's not as much riding on this game. It is 1v2, but both teams look firmly set for the semi-finals. So wouldn't it be the worst idea to say, right, South Africa, we've seen you stumble in a chase. We've actually won batting first. Let's do what makes you uncomfortable. Do you think like that at all today?
You have to weigh up what you're taking away from yourself. So India love chasing. So if they're prepared to let South Africa chase, that you have to weigh it up in a way that you don't want to stack the odds in your favour or in the opposition's favour, rather. So there's not a huge amount between these two teams, I don't think, particularly throughout this tournament. They've both got very good pace bowling attacks. Spinners have been exceptional. And the batting, maybe South Africa's got the power, but I think India's got the experience when it comes to their top order. They're all in great form as well. But, it's not just about matching up what the other team doesn't want to do. You still have to make sure that you're in front at the end of the game.
I mean, I guess this is the kind of, do you start thinking at this point, this could also be the World Cup final? What if we don't win our toss in the World Cup final? Should we prepare ourselves to do something we don't like?
No, I think you'd like to keep the momentum going. I mean, you'd like to look at the surface. In all probability, if it's a dry surface, then India would like to bowl first, especially at Eden Gardens, where there could be potential dew coming in later in the evening. And then, yes, South Africa have some really good batters of spin, but they are still vulnerable. With someone like the quality and the ability of a Jadeja and Kuldeep, they will be vulnerable in that middle period, because that's where they have really stamped their authority in this tournament. Between the 11th and the 40th over, South Africa have been destructive and setting up those scores. So if it's a dry surface at the Eden Gardens, then you would want the spinners to come and play, and not necessarily in the second innings where there could be dew and it could sort of help the batters in those conditions.
All right, well, let's have a look at the record between these two teams in World Cup cricket. Now, India are stacking up a record against most oppositions given the improvement that we've seen from the Indian cricket team in recent years. But South Africa still have the wood over them, you'd say, at World Cups. It's 3-2 in World Cup cricket. And post the 2019 tournament, we've had South Africa go 4-2 up. So this is a team that they don't necessarily fear. As we look at recent World Cup encounters too, India did win the last two, but in India, South Africa have a very good record. We remember Dale Steyn at Nagpur turning a game around when the ball began to reverse. It started reversing now in this tournament, finally too. But after that, India have re-established themselves firmly when it comes to head-to-head India-South Africa contest. 2015 at the MCG was a cracking game, packed house, where Shikhar Dhawan got 100. It really kick-started India's campaign. And then Rohit Sharma still has the happy memories of what went down in Southampton when India won by 6 wickets chasing. So they've done it both, batting first and chasing in recent World Cup games. They're at a ground that Rohit Sharma also enjoys. The Eden Gardens is one of the great grounds of the world. It's one of 6 that have hosted a World Cup final, and it is going to fittingly host India v South Africa. Yash Jha is over there. He usually gives us the lowdown, in this case the history, for one of the great venues for our sport.
This is Kolkata Maidan. Legend has it that the first ever game of cricket on Indian soil was played right here way back in 1804, when a team of old Etonians employed by the East India Company took on a team of Calcuttans. 60 years later, in 1864, it was on the grounds of these Maidans, which sprawl over 1,000 acres and run around 3 kilometers in length, that the Eden Gardens was built. Nearly 90 years since it hosted its first international, Eden Gardens has been an institution for some and the spiritual home of Indian cricket for others. It has been the site of many an iconic moment in the game, but the last memory of hosting India in a men's ODI World Cup game, that isn't a pleasant one. The 1996 semi-final against Sri Lanka should have been a day to celebrate, but a dramatic collapse that saw India lose 7 wickets for 22 runs in pursuit of Sri Lanka's 251 resulted in a capacity crowd rioting and setting light into the stands. For the first and still only time in World Cup history, a match was awarded by default. They will hope for more cheery spirits this time as they welcome an Indian side that has marched into the knockouts of this World Cup and has been helmed in the last few games by a local hero in Mohammad Shami, who seems hell-bent on making every World Cup bowling record his own.
That this game comes against South Africa to potentially decide who finishes top of the league stage standings only adds to the occasion, but there is infamous history with this opponent too, one of the darker days in this venue's storied past. Back in 2005, South Africa handed India a 10-wicket drubbing right here in the 4th game of a 5-match ODI series, which saw Eden Gardens roaring in support of the visitors and booing the hosts to remonstrate against the recent sacking of their favourite son, the Prince of Calcutta, Sourav Ganguly. Then captain and now coach Rahul Dravid surely will walk into a much less hostile Eden Gardens this time around. They were denied a taste of the victory procession back in 2011 with no India games held here, but Kolkata is raring in anticipation to be part of India's potential path to glory in 2023, regardless of whether or not they get to see a semi-final here in about 10 days' time.
Oh, it's nice of yours to just bring up those happy memories of the Eden Gardens. Anil Kumble has a few as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking about how this is such a celebrated venue, but it's also an unforgiving venue in a different time.
Yeah, it is. But they didn't have confidence in my batting in 1996 when I walked it. Because I certainly had faith saying, okay, there's 100 runs or 120 runs to get. Kamli and Kumble will do the job. But unfortunately, yes, the game was stopped and it was awarded to Sri Lanka in that semi-final. So, yeah, very disappointing for us. I thought we had a great tournament, but unfortunately it ended like that.
Yeah, and speaking of what the Eden Gardens looks like today, we've only seen a couple of games there, Finch, where Pakistan went home comfortably against Bangladesh and the Dutch defended 229. Any impressions that we can make of what to expect at Kolkata yet?
I think it'll be a slowish wicket, which then probably accentuates the dew factor later on, or when the lights take effect. But what I've been really surprised about this tournament is teams continuing to bowl first. Because that first 10 overs in the second innings, the ball is zipping around, it's swinging more, and it's seaming a little bit more. So teams, by the time the dews come in, teams have been blown away and the game's almost been over at times. So for me, I think it's time that teams start to back themselves in with the bat. try and get a big score batting first. Saying that, last night New Zealand probably thought they did with 401 on the board.
Yeah. But conversely, that's also what's happening. Last night was a bit of an aberration. But teams that are being put in aren't really being skittled out as such. They're still getting 300 plus scores, at times 350, 370, and then no matter what we say about chasing in India and the dew and whatnot, it doesn't seem easy.
Yeah, I know. It's not easy. And in Calcutta, we know that it gets dark pretty early around this time of the year. So you'll have lights on around 4:45.
Yes.
And so it'll be a long under lights for you. So yes, in that sense, it's possible. But, the surface will be dry. I agree with Finchy that I saw the Pakistan-Bangladesh game on television, and it looked as though even Shaheen Afridi, when he was bowling quick, it was not carrying. Yes, it was carrying to the wicketkeeper, but off the surface, it was pretty slow. Yeah. So I expect this surface also to be slower, on the slower side. And if the dew comes in, later in the day, I'm sure it will get better to bat on.
Since we had you after a while, Finchy, and the tournament has had a lot of developments since, especially with India losing their most important player, we thought, in Hardik Pandya, and yet we had Tom Moody and I think the game against England where it says, funny enough, they look stronger even without their most important player. They've replaced Hardik with an outright seamer.
Yep.
What does that tell you about the Indian team, if there's any messaging that you can read into that?
I think that they're really comfortable with where the quicks are at the moment, and they're comfortable with the balance of the side. So to me that says that Jadeja at 7 is an absolute lock. They're probably going away from the Shardul as a third seamer to give a little bit of batting cover, because their top order's getting the job done. And we were talking before we come in here that one day they might need that number 7 and number 8.
Yep.
But Jadeja is still getting the job done, not as often in one-day cricket because he just doesn't have to.
Yes.
Because everybody else is doing their job. So for me, the three quicks, they look unbelievable at the moment, and I would stick with that formula. You've got 2 world-class spinners. The only issue is if one of the bowlers does get smacked around a little bit and they have to turn to a sixth bowler, and that's Virat Kohli. That as a captain, that would
you'd welcome it. Yeah.
Oh no, not as a fielding captain. You're thinking, right, how can I try and find one over from anyone else, really?
Yeah, that's the entire challenge. I'm sure opposition's thing now. Let's take on this bowler so that Rohit Sharma has to think.
But everywhere you turn, there's no one to take on. That's the problem.
That's what we're getting into now.
Yeah, now all the 5 bowlers have been extraordinary in this World Cup. Yes, we've hardly spoken about Jadeja. We have spoken about Kuldeep, yes, in the middle overs, but Jaddu has really done well in this tournament as a left-arm spinner. Yes, the 5 bowlers are quality, but that is something that South Africa perhaps have an opportunity today to take on, because, like you said, this is not a semi-final of a World Cup. It's an opportunity for the South African batters to say, okay, let me target somebody. Yes, the way they have approached is to be sort of circumspect in the first 10 overs and then not lose wickets and then have that platform. So maybe if they do that today, they may take on one of the spinners.
I think New Zealand came closest when Daryl Mitchell clearly took down Kuldeep Yadav.
Yeah.
And that's when he went for about 40, 50. Then suddenly he comes back and ends up with 2 for 70 odd, 3 for 70 odd. In some ways, does it help a modern day captain when he knows he's only got the 5 bowlers? You then don't need to look for that 6th option. Perhaps your bowler has it in you to salvage it in his 2nd or 3rd spell.
Yeah, and I think the key with Kuldeep is he keeps taking wickets along the way. So at some point he will get access to a new batter, which he can then get back into his rhythm, because it's hard to try and smack a bowler like that. And that's the case with all the Indian attack. But as a captain, when you've only got 5 bowlers, you tend to use them a little bit more efficiently. When you've got 6, you sometimes try and find a place. So from Australia's point of view, you're always trying to find a place to fit an over of Stoinis or Maxwell in or Cameron Green to be able to give you some options come the back end of the game. Whereas if you don't have it, sometimes it makes life a lot simpler.
And also, if I remember, just prior to the World Cup, when Australia played that home series here, I think India played 5 bowlers there in Indore, which is not easy, playing just 5 bowlers at Indore, and then won that game with 5 bowlers. So, yeah, it's all about managing your 5 bowlers and then having the trust and the faith. And the bowling attack knows fully well that each bowler will have to bowl these 10 overs. So it's how you sort of manage your 10 overs is critical as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game where it's a delicious prospect. You have a team that's saying, let's put India under pressure because they've been one of the standout teams of the tournament, and you have an Indian team saying, come on, try. Let's try and get one of our bowlers away. So let's talk key matchups And we'll discuss that with Finchy and Anil on who should take down whom potentially when we have this assortment of informed players from either side. First, let's give you some insight on the numbers.
India versus South Africa, the final before the final? You wouldn't be wrong to think so. They've been the two best sides in the World Cup so far, but that's the bigger picture. Dive in a little deeper, and there are a few mini battles that will play out on Sunday. The first one is going to be between Rohit Sharma and Marco Jansen. A left-arm pacer in a green jersey charging into bowl is always a nervous sight for India fans. To make matters worse, Jansen has the most wickets for any bowler in the power play phase in this World Cup. Oh, and one other thing. We've seen Rohit fall early to left-arm pace quite recently. He perished to Dilshan Madhushankar in India's game against Sri Lanka. But you probably don't remember that early wicket. Because after all that, Sri Lanka's 10 wickets fell early in that game. Another battle to watch out for is Shreyas Iyer versus Lungi Ngidi. Iyer is coming off his best innings yet in this World Cup. He's captain of Kolkata Knight Riders, and so Eden Gardens, where India will play South Africa, is like a home venue for him. And he's got no issues with the short ball. But trust Ngidi to not take Iyer's word for it. In 5 innings, Ngidi has managed to dismiss Iyer 4 times. Iyer's average against Ngidi is 7.8. One of the dismissals was to the short ball. If the two face off, expect a lot of short stuff from Ngidi to Iyer on a pacey Eden Gardens wicket. Now, time to look at what South Africa's batters are up against. Of course, Bumrah, Siraj and Shami will bring the heat. But their biggest challenge might not be the pace trio. Against South Africa, Kuldeep Yadav has taken 24 wickets in 10 matches at an average of just 16. This includes 3 4-wicket hauls. In India, he's bowled to the Proteas thrice and has an average of 17.66. The pitch is going to be about pace, but the results could be determined by spin.
So many matchups to look forward to, and which one will we see in the first half now? News from the Eden Gardens. Rohit Sharma wins the toss. India will bat first. Now that throws all of us into certainty now, and we can now reflect and speculate. Thoughts? India batting first and clearly putting South Africa out of their comfort zone?
Yes, that's something that they, I'm sure, would have looked at in terms of winning this battle. It's all about what's right for that occasion and for that particular match. And for India, on that surface, just to go out there and then bat without any pressure, get some runs on the board, and then put pressure on South African batting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to try and get Rohit Sharma's words, whether he's given a reasoning, offered a reasoning, but this is in sync with what you were saying. The trend of the tournament, actually batting first and batting second, there's not much between them in terms of results, but there is a clear threat that India's bowlers can enhance when they bowl second?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been brilliant when they've had the opportunity to defend a total, and I think this today will be an indication of whether I think, and this is my personal opinion, whether I think that South Africa can win the tournament. And whether they win or lose today, I don't think that makes much difference. To me, what shows the difference will be their approach with the bat. We saw against the Netherlands, they were very timid with the bat. There was no energy, there was no intent. So if India get 300, for example, and South Africa come out and they play their natural game and they play shots and they get close, to me that would say that they can still win the tournament. But if they get bundled out early because they're timid and they go back into their shell again, chasing a total like they have done so often, then to me that would be signs that they're still really worrying when they bat second.
Fascinating that, because we'll get to see evidence of that and how South Africa approached their innings. Just words from Rohit Sharma. It's a good pitch. It's more to do with what we want to do as a team. So let's take that on face value. And we had spoken pre-tournament, Anil, we said actually India's strength may lie in batting first and not having to, where we know the batting ends at 7. So do you sense this is what they would do now going into a semi-final and a final?
Yeah, possibly, because of the kind of quality that the Indian pacers have produced. We saw that in evidence at the Wankhede Stadium, where under lights, the ball was just swinging around, and they also believe that the openers are the key, especially Quinton de Kock
Yeah.
for South Africa. In the two chases that South Africa has had trouble, one against Netherlands where they lost, and the second one against Pakistan, which they barely made it. Quinton de Kock didn't score runs, much runs.
Yeah.
That he would get, I mean, he's already scored 400s in this tournament. So maybe that's one of the reasons. And it's not easy when under lights, if there's a little bit of swing, you'll get it more in the second half of the day rather than perhaps now.
Does there come one game in a World Cup at times where you then just lean what you're feeling and it becomes more of an assurance? And was that game England, for instance? 229, that is the worst that can happen when we bat first.
Yeah.
Then you see what your bowlers do and you say, no, now this is how we will play. Can it happen?
Yeah, I think that's also a reflection of how England are playing at the moment. The defending champions have been horrible throughout this tournament.
Yeah.
But the confidence that India have in their quicks at the moment, particularly to get new ball wickets, is unbelievable. And I've never seen a bowling attack, particularly three frontline quicks, to make the ball move comparative to the opposition in the same conditions. So for me, they bowl an immaculate line and length. There's just so much to love about this Indian attack, and when they're up and about, they're impossible to stop.
And also South African batting is very similar to India. They stop at 7. Marco Jansen has got some runs.
Yeah.
Yes, Kutsa can bat. Maharaj has taken them across the line, but then it's not all-rounders. Not the depth that
some other teams do.
some other teams do. So they are dependent heavily on the top order too. So if you can knock down a couple of top order batters with some runs on the board, then I think that's a good sign.
As it turns out, they won't have Gerald Coetzee, so it's now like for like almost. South Africa have made one change, and Tabraiz Shamsi returns. Aaron Finch mentioned that this is a surface that he is seen to be dry and there could be the use for the extra spinner, and Shamsi has been used strategically and successfully. Player of the match in the effort against Pakistan, dropped the next game, so clearly he's got a role depending on conditions, Finchy, and that he's bowling first. Perhaps that is the call that South Africa have just made. They want two spinners today.
Yeah, and the really good strength of a squad is having Marco Jansen there at number 7, who's batted so well and taken new ball wickets, is they've got the flexibility to play around with that spinner or a fourth quick, in fact. So just going horses for courses, I think, is really important. I think India are quality players as spin, so Coetzee was a bit of a point of difference for that attack as well. But Shamsi's been in great form. He bowled beautifully and then missed out in the next game. But, I mean, he's a professional. He's somebody who plays all around the world in T20 games as well. So I think he's used to that coming in and on short notice.
And also the only two teams which sort of have a sort of set template that, okay, even when Shardul Thakur was a part of the Indian setup in the first half of the tournament, where they were very clear that, okay, it's either Shardul or Ashwin based on the conditions, and now just batting stops at 7 and then we pick 5 bowlers. And similarly, South Africa, if the conditions are suitable for fast bowling, then Kutsa comes in. If it's a dry surface, then Shamsi comes in.
You see India not having as much of a problem as other oppositions when they face the threat of Tabraiz Shamsi?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he's still a wonderful bowler, and his googly is exceptional as well. But I think India are the most safe team, I would say, against spin. And I don't mean safe in terms of conservative. They still take it on, but they can seem to score at a really good rate with minimal risk. And I think if you compare that to Australia, for example, if Australia smack a spinner, it's generally high risk. And there's a lot of sixes, there'll be a lot of dot balls still. So that they've just got that balance, and that's home conditions for you as well. It makes life a lot easier.
Of course, we've had Steve Amerson over the last few days, Finchy in studio, saying he's worried about the Australians in the Afghanistan game, looking at how they've been playing spin.
Yeah, it's a fair call. I mean, if I was picking a side against Australia, you'd load it up with spinners, wouldn't you?
Yep, fair enough. And yes, we will see the double spin threat of Shamsi and Maharaj, but this is essentially the tone has been set at the top. It has been set by Rohit Sharma, and of course it's an unchanged Indian team. Let's just confirm that for you first. Rohit Sharma has already expressed that this is a ground he loves batting on. We've seen what he's done in every format of the game, IPL cricket as well, and he leads an unchanged team from the one that blew Sri Lanka away the Wankhede a few days ago. And on Virat Kohli's 35th birthday, he eyes what would be perhaps almost too perfect an occasion to level Sachin Tendulkar's 49th. But if it is to happen, no better stage than the Eden Gardens. I don't know how birthdays tend to work, perhaps just sidestepping from the game. Did you normally perform better on your birthdays, international players, or did it almost be a dampener on your own performance?
I can certainly remember one birthday where I got a gift in the first wicket that I got, and then I picked up a fifer. This was against West Indies in a test match in Chennai.
Okay.
The first one was a bit... yeah, so I got that gift, so I said, thank you very much. No DRS. Yeah, so once you get that, then you're in, and so it was.
So that was a happy birthday.
Yeah, it was a happy birthday.
Yeah.
I don't remember any other, because that was, so you only remember happy birthdays when you play.
True. Yeah. Finchy, any such
I think I got 100 on an ODI 100 on my birthday one year, maybe against India.
That's it. That's all the detail you've got. I can't even challenge it when you put it that way.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I can't remember off the top of my head who was it against, but I'm confident that I got one.
Excellent, good. So it can happen, right? It can happen. That's what I'm saying. You can get things happening for you on your birthday. But the challenge for Kohli will be an informed South African bowling attack. Challenge for India is that they've had Rohit and Kohli step up every game. As we just have a look at how this tournament has gone, it's extraordinary that two of India's most prominent, highest profile, big players, their form may have been indifferent in recent times, but come the World Cup, they've been extraordinary. Even Rohit, though, got a good one against Australia, Kohli took charge of the chase. Then they both scored against Afghanistan. Rohit gave India the start against Pakistan in a slightly low chase. Kohli then managed to get 100 against Bangladesh, New Zealand too, contributions from both. And against England, even though England worked out, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma played an extraordinary innings. And again, the other way around. When you look at that, you sense this is just quality. Or are you worried if, I'm more worried that way. What if the two of them don't fire? Then what?
No, I think, in a World Cup, you want your big players to put their hand up, and that shows the list of, they've been the top performers for India for a long period of time, and they are the key to India's World Cup success. And you want your top players to be contributing in most matches, and that's a great sign. If one doesn't perform, the other performs, and if both perform, then it's trouble for the opposition, and that's exactly what it says.
They're getting 80, between a minimum of 80, one of them.
Yeah.
So if one doesn't get you, the other one is, and like you said, when you've got your world-class players, and there's a lot of world-class players in that side, but two of the all-time greats of the game performing the way that they are in a World Cup, it gives the rest of the group so much confidence, and particularly the way that Rohit's playing, I think is more important than the amount of runs that he's getting. He's aggressive, he's leading by example. He said he's going to take him on at the top, and he's done that right throughout this tournament so far. And wow, what a player. I don't think there's ever been a better player to watch when they're in full flight. Makes
a difference when your captain does that as well, just in terms of setting the template, playing that way?
I think for your own mental health more than anything, because it's one thing to talk about how you want to play and how you want to go about things. And then when you're not doing it yourself, you feel like you're letting the team down. But I think as long as everyone in the team knows how well you're prepared, there's no issues with it. And I had times throughout my career when I'd be in really poor form or really good form. I didn't have a huge gap in between. Mine was one way or the other. So sometimes it simplifies things for you as well. When you talk to your team about how you're going to play, you have to commit to that, because if you don't, you lose the dressing room pretty quick. So Rohit said we're being aggressive. If he misses out a few times being aggressive, it's okay.
Yeah, I guess
but also as a performing captain, your mind is clear. You're not cluttered in making decisions on the field, or even
off the field.
Even off the field. Yeah. So that I think is important, especially in a tournament like this.
Yes, it's no coincidence that Rohit Sharma's form has also seen him be tactically right on the money in the second innings.
Oh yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah.
All right, very good from Rohit Sharma. So it's simple for the opposition. Just get both of them out. How? Let's make a plan here. Let's see, because we got South Africa's pacers, who have been more prolific than anybody else. Between them, Rabada, Ngidi and Janssen have taken 34 wickets in this year's tournament. They've been outstanding. And of course, this is a challenge for them early on, with India batting first. England found a way to keep Kohli quiet and almost create an environment to get his wicket. Rohit's got a couple of good ones. How can you bring that all together if you're the opposition?
I think Marco Janssen's so important for South Africa, the ability to swing the ball back. If I'm not mistaken, he's got 12 of those 16 wickets inside the power play. So he's setting the tone for South Africa, and for me, that's what it's all about. When the left arm is swinging it, he's challenging both edges of the bat. He's getting people through the gate, but he's also nicking them off with the one that doesn't swing. So I think that Rohit Sharma in particular will try and be aggressive against him. I think he'll fight fire with fire. He'll see the biggest threat from the South African side and try and get him in or out of the attack, hit him out of the attack pretty quick.
You sense that'll be a way to go because it's a dangerous thing to go after Marco Jansen with the way he's bowling. Let's just have a look at those numbers in the power play. South Africa's bowling, it's right up there in terms of the wickets they've got, the strike rate, and the amount of times they've had the opposition 2 down early in this tournament. So they're right up there in top rank. 7 times they've done it. Mind you, this is their 8th game now. They've chased twice. So 5 out of those 7 games would be when South Africa were bowling second, under the lights, the point that Finch makes. How do you see Jansen versus Rohit playing out, Anil?
I think you need to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the reason that he's picked up those wickets in the power play. That's the reason that he's been really at the top of his game in this World Cup. Both Jansen and I feel someone like a Kagiso Rabada, especially to these 2 batters who are in form, you need to keep your slip for a longer period of time, irrespective of whether you're leaking runs, doesn't matter. You're still looking to get people out. And even if it's a slow surface, you have chances of players nicking early. If you don't get them in the first 10, 20 runs, then you're in trouble. Because once they get set on any surface, these 2 will certainly hurt the opposition. So as a bowler, as a bowling unit, you need to be aggressive from both ends. It can't be one of you do it, the other will defend. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and this is such a good clash for just in terms of the quality or the expectation of quality that we have from this contest. Because while you saw those good numbers from South Africa, they've been prolific with the ball in the power play. They come up against India, who have similar numbers corresponding when it comes to batting in the first 10. So you've got the best team bowling in the first 10 against the best team that's batted in the first 10. They're second in terms of average. That's a net value that we've come up with, as well as first in terms of 6 hitting. That's something unique now. 6 hitting, a lot of teams are trying it, Finch. A lot of teams are falling short. Somehow India seem to have this prolific 6 hitting of the new ball, which has not been as easy for a number of opening batters.
I think because the 2 players that you have at the top, they're a great player and an absolute young gun. Rohit's using the pace really well, and any time that you're slightly offline, he is destroying. He's throwing his hands through the ball as hard as anyone you've ever seen. It reminds me of someone like Sehwag, that wit, and he's not trying to hit the ball along the ground at times. So I think you're going to hit 6s. He's been a prolific 6 hitter right throughout his career with the way that he times the ball, but it'll be a different challenge against South Africa because they've got pace on the ball. They bowl probably a touch shorter, which plays into Rohit's hands as well.
A trend we were discussing, I think, a couple of days back, we had Steve Amerson here at the time, Anil, was looking at the 6 hitting and the hundreds that are being made. The 6 hitting is essentially concentrated over a small bunch of players in this World Cup, as against England, where we were seeing 350 scores. We're still seeing big scores here. It's a very different model in which we're getting it. What does that tell you in terms of more 6s from the likes of de Kock and Warner and Rohit, but it's not sort of spread across the batting lineup like it was in 2019?
I think you need pace on the ball in India for you to hit 6s. Otherwise, you need to be a good player of spin. So you've seen the likes of Klaasen hit 6s because that's what he does. But in India, in the power play, if you're set and if the ball is coming onto you, then that's the time for you to hit those boundaries. And we have seen that with the likes of Quinton de Kock and Rohit Sharma and even Rachin Ravindra to an extent. When the ball is coming on, he's just going after it. So that's the sort of way in India. And in the middle overs, you need to be set or a really good player of spin for you to hit those 6s.
Finch, anything to add to that?
Not really. I think it's just good batting. I mean, most teams have got a stability type player through their middle order. If you look at Australia, they've got 2 with Smith and Marnus Labuschagne. Joe Root, although he hasn't got the runs in the tournament. Virat Kohli, to an extent, he's not a big risk taker, particularly in his innings. Babar Azam, Rassie van der Dusen. So, I mean, these teams are loading up at the top and loading up at the bottom and then trying to bat through the middle. So I think that concentration of 6s will always be the key. Yeah,
they've also, I guess, what you're saying is reinforced the ODI template, which is very different from 2019. And now you need guys to play longish test innings at times at a run of ball, not necessarily the brand of cricket that England boast about. What does that tell us? Is it just to this World Cup? Do you see that carrying forward?
I think it's this World Cup. I think the wickets haven't been as true and as absolutely flat as what we've seen, being this time of year as well. It's probably a different time for a lot of teams to come here and play as well. So there's a little bit of unknown, whereas you go to England in the middle of June, July, you know the wickets are going to be hard, they're going to be flat as they were. And guys could almost just load up from ball one, whereas here you have to have a bit of batting craft, you have to be prepared to put time into your innings. Strike rate of 80 we've seen is a decent one to then be able to catch up and explode, because that allows the rest of the guys to bat around you. You look at the South African lineup, they've got Markram, Klaas and Miller that bat behind Rassie van der Dusen. So if he does his job, and it could be 75, 80 strike rate, that allows them guys so much freedom.
And also at the start of the Indian cricket season,
Correct.
Like Finch mentioned, you generally don't come in this time of the year.
We've never had a World Cup this year. We've always had it in our summer.
Yeah, in February, March is when you sort of have it. So yes, its conditions are different. Wickets are fresh, and if you take the grass off, then they are slightly slower. So you have to adapt, and you need to have those skills to be able to assess and have that ability to maneuver.
Shubman Gill, just one of the boxes that were ticked last game, because we hadn't quite seen Shubman Gill, the beast that we saw in years going into the World Cup. But that last innings, did he strike you as someone who's back to his best?
Oh yeah, I mean he's always been like that. It's just that the illness certainly takes its toll. It's not easy to recover from a dengue, and it takes time for you to get back your full strength. I think he spoke about it even after the last game, that he still hasn't got his full strength. He's not feeling that kind of strength. So yes, it takes its time, but class batter. Got some runs in the last game. That should only augur well.
I imagine he'd be someone who would hit a lot of balls in the lead up to games or tournaments. So like you said, if he's...
All batters do, Finch.
Right. So if he's feeling fatigued and a little bit weak compared to what he has, he probably hasn't been able to get the work in that he would have liked. And for a young player like him who would have a regimented, very disciplined lead up to games and mental and physical preparation, being out for a couple of weeks and missing a few games, that would wreak a little bit of havoc on your preparation.
Routine,
so that'll come at the back end of this season, back end of this tournament, because once he gets going, wow, he's so good.
Yeah, it's understandable. It's not easy. The body needs to recover with what tends to happen. It's actually remarkable he recovered as quickly as he did, Shubman Gill, but we are seeing him get better and better with each game. What about the middle order then? It could come down to a challenge of how many India can get if their top order continues to fire. Shreyas Iyer is a box ticked. KL Rahul was already a box ticked early on. What about Surya Kumar Yadav? He got a score as well against England, an important one given the way that game panned out. Average is good. Surya, we know what he's capable of, Finchy. Shreyas Iyer was addressing questions about his handling of the short ball. I'm sure that South Africa would target him with it today, the kind of bowlers they have.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's got out quite a bit to it. And the way that he answered the question in the press conference suggested that he's quite defensive about it. He's trying to almost dismiss it.
Yeah.
But when it keeps happening, teams are going to keep bowling at it. But he's a quality player once he gets in. And Sky, I mean, he's a player who's 360 around the ground, and we probably haven't seen the best of him in ODI cricket if you compare to how well he plays T20 or both international and IPL. But I think if the platform's right, then he can be such a damaging player for this Indian team and put a lot of icing on a pretty special cake of a top order as good as they are.
I'm curious to see if we see the kind of bounce and assistance on this surface. Finchy said it's dry. South Africa playing a spinner. What kind of middle over cricket can we expect?
No, there will be bounce, but it'll be slower. The pace will be slower. So it's a lot tougher if you want to take the bowler on.
Yeah.
As a batter, I'm sure Finchy will agree that on a slowish surface, when there's a bit of bounce, it's a lot tougher to hit a pull shot or a hook shot than when it's much quicker. So that'll be the challenge. And we haven't spoken about Ngidi as well. Ngidi is pretty awkward with his action and the angles. And if it's a dry surface, he will get some help from the surface as well, with the odd movement coming back in or leaving the batter. So in that sense, the middle order will have to keep in mind. And they have two spinners. I thought Maharaj has bowled exceptionally well for them. I'm sure the batters, once they're set, someone like a Shreyas Iyer will take the spinners on, Shamsi and Maharaj. And so South Africa will have to get their fast bowlers in.
We saw Ngidi in that matchup package against Shreyas, I think average of 7 that Shreyas has against him. Something about Ngidi as a foreign seamer who seems to be at home when he's bowling on the different surfaces that India has?
Yeah, I think it's because he naturally comes down for an in-swinger. He's developed an out-swinger, but predominantly his natural ball is into the right-hander. So what that does is he can fall off the side of the ball at times. And on wickets that might just hold a little bit, and this might be a great example for it today, when you're coming down the side, it just reacts slightly different off the surface every time. So might not be an easy wicket to just hit through the line or hit over the top. So clever bowler is somebody who keeps upskilling his game.
They've also understood roles for their fast bowlers. Rabada's first change now, clearly.
Yep.
Will it change things when, say, India put someone like Temba Bavuma under pressure? They take on a Jansen or an Ngidi, bring in Rabada. Does that tend to disrupt plans?
Oh, as a captain, you plan for everything. So if this guy goes around the park, who do we go to? Or so I don't think it would upset plans too much. The thing that might is if Shamsi gets smacked, because then who do they go to? Then they've got to try and find some overs out of Markram.
And which has not happened all tournament, I think. They've stuck to 5 bowlers every game so far.
And particularly against India with all right-handers, except right down to number 7 of Jadeja. So that would be the way that I would look to play it. You have to put one of them under pressure, get to their 6th bowler, and same thing for India, get to their 6th bowler, whoever it might be, because then you just you change the makeup of their whole bowling innings.
Yeah, interestingly, when you talk about a matchup that a spinner prefers, we've spoken of Shamsi, let's talk about Keshav Maharaj as well. He's quietly just gone about his business. He's clearly part of South Africa's first 11 regardless. We had a bit of a chat last game on whether Shamsi might outrank Maharaj as the sole spinner. But Maharaj against right-hand batters, of which he's got 6 in the top 6 for India. No left-hander until Jadeja. Average is 21.9, economy of 4.9. Could he quietly be a bigger threat today than he has been previously looking at the conditions?
He's a very clever bowler, very crafty bowler, and he's certainly held his own in this tournament. Not just with the ball, but he's also helped South Africa cross the line with the bat.
Yep.
And very mature. He's very calm under pressure. We've seen that, and I think he'll be very useful on the surface. And it's dry. And he would have preferred bowling first on this, because if there's any dew, then it's not easy for any kind of spinner.
In a bowling lineup of 5 very good bowlers, you still have to, as a team, identify who the weak link is.
Absolutely.
So who is the weak link here? Is it still Shamsi? Is it Maharaj? Is it Jansen, who's still young, even though he's in form?
Oh, I think it could be Ngidi, you know. It might be Rabada at different times, particularly to the top 2. I think with Rohit, he likes to hang back and he'll use the pace, he'll get inside and help the ball. It'll be different for each for each batsman. For KL Rahul, it might be, he's a very good player of spin, so it might be Shamsi. His ability to come down the wicket and use his height and his reach to his advantage. So it'll be a cracking contest. So.
Let's get underway then. Let's stop the chat about it. Let's get a prediction, shall we? Aaron Finch, Anil Kumble, first innings score prediction.
285.
You sense that's a good
say
score?
285.
That's that's a good score, you think?
Yeah, it's par score. But India will have to bowl really well.
Which they have been. 285 is a lot of runs against India these days. Finchy?
299.
An advantage India, you think now?
Just.
Just.
If South Africa bring the right attitude with the bat.
All right, that's very good. Let's find out, and we'll have Finchy and Anil all through the day. So let's look forward to your company to the end of the Indian innings on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. Download the mobile app if you haven't already. Cracking game, you do not want to miss it, and we will of course get you the very latest updates as soon as the innings has come to an end. Seems to be a slight delay at the Eden Gardens. I wonder if you guys have spotted something new out there. Someone else got the new ball.
Yeah, Marco Jansen is not starting the proceedings.
It already is something different.
And Giddy bowling the first over.
I think has that happened on 1 or 2
probably.
games. Yeah, we know that Rohit Sharma from his IPL record generally doesn't like the bowler that's a little slower than the other 2. I mean, Ngidi is not slow.
But swinging it back to Rohit, you have to give yourself the best opportunity. If he faces 6 balls in this over of Ngidi, then you lose that advantage of the left armer swinging it back early.
Yeah, of the first ball. Yeah.
Madhushanka got him last game, second ball. So
correct, absolutely.
Great contest.
They've thought this through, these teams. Let's see whose plans work, whose doesn't. And we'll pick up the chat on our mid-innings analysis show. So look forward to your company then.
Stunning looks, then swift,